Thank you, Natalie Coca. So you want to change the world? What are you waiting for? Right? I mean, what are we waiting for? You know, we think we're waiting for something. We're waiting. Well, you know, Rob was talking a couple weeks ago about waiting for something. Well, golly, y'all, really? You did that, you know? Talking about the lake house. We can do anything we want. We can do anything we want because with God, all things are possible. And we have to get out of our own way. We have to get out of our own way and put our faith and put our connection and put our awareness in that which is greater than us. I decided to do some Old Testament. Are you scared? Not too much. We don't do Old Testament too much in Unity, but every now and again I like to give you a little Bible study just to remind you that it actually makes some sense, even though you might have read it before. So in the Old Testament, well, the Bible, the Scriptures, our Holy Scriptures are really the story of the evolution of humankind's consciousness. It's the story of the evolution of our awareness and our consciousness in spirituality and also our consciousness of God. It's not that God changed from the Old Testament to the New Testament, but our awareness changed. So the Old Testament is very much about the law. You know, we came onto this planet and the planet was birthed and humanity was birthed and it was what? Good. It was what? It was good. Everything was good. And then life happened. Right? And life happened. And the nation of Israel, which is what the Scriptures are primarily about, ended up in challenges. And Israel represents, metaphysically, spiritual consciousness. It represents striving for God. And it says in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which is one of our great books to metaphysically interpret the Scriptures, it says, it requires the story of Israel from Abraham, which is the book of Genesis in the very beginning, all the way through Jesus Christ in the book of Revelation, to picture the growth and spiritualization of the whole man, of the whole humankind. So it is the story of our evolution. So in the beginning, we have the judges, and well, we have Moses, and we have all that story. Then we have the judges, and then we have the kings, and then we have the prophets. The judges and the kings and the prophets are the ones who can connect with God. Because so far in our consciousness, we don't have direct access to God. That's what Jesus Christ brings us in the New Testament. So one of the prophets, by the name of Habakkuk, who was considered a minor prophet, partly because his book was only 3 chapters long. One of the prophets you might actually like to read, because it's only 3 chapters long. Habakkuk is a prophet, and he's living in a world where it appears like God is silent, that God has gone missing, that God has left the land of Israel to perish. So through the Old Testament, there's basically 2 things that happen. Well, you can summarize it by this. Obey God and you will be blessed. Disobey God and you will be cursed. So the whole story of the whole Old Testament, loosely speaking, is that the land of Israel, the nation of Israel, is obeying God, which is like connecting to God. So they're doing their prayers, they're doing their meditations, they're going to their Unity Church on Sunday mornings, and they're tithing, and they're doing their work, right? Or whatever it was in that time. So they're obeying God and everything's going great. And then something happens and you begin to slip. Now take this personal, not personal, but personal. Take this to heart because it's our evolving journey. And we slip and then all of a sudden we're worshiping a false idol. You know, the weather station, CNN, the sports station, CBS News, whatever it is that grabs our attention, and we shift our awareness from God to something other, than God. That's called idolatry. We do it all day long. It's no big deal. It's just an opportunity to come back. And so in the time of Habakkuk, Israel was being taken over and oppressed by, this time, the Babylonians. And so there were many different nations that would, like, Israel would fall and then they would rise, and then they would fall and then they would rise. Does that sound like your own spiritual journey? I get a truth, I get a new awareness, and then I stumble. And then I get a new truth and a new awareness, and I stumble. Right? Just so that you're all on the same page. This makes sense. So Habakkuk is praying to God. He is one of the only prophets that only connects with God. Most prophets are going out to the people, and they're saying, yo, people, y'all, come on, get on board here. We're being destroyed, but God is, when we obey God, language of the Old Testament, when we connect with God, language of the New Testament and beyond, all things will work together for good. We will be lifted. We will be saved. We will be freed. So in the time of Habakkuk, the book of Habakkuk begins with a complaint. So just to make sure I know who I'm talking to, is there anybody in this room who did not offer up a complaint sometime this week? Oh, we got one or two. Good. Congratulations. Bear with the rest of us, right? And he was seeing injustice in the world. He was seeing violence in the world. He was seeing evil in his own country, and he couldn't find God. God remained silent and invisible. So in this very short book, the first chapter was really about Habakkuk calling on God. It looks like we are going to be taken over by evil. The Babylonians were evil in that day. And where are you, and what's going on anyway? And the second chapter is all about God's response. And God's response, basically, loosely, was, oh, honey, sweetheart, bless your little sweetheart, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Evil will destroy evil in the end. They will get their own. I am here. I am present. When you turn to God once more, as an individual, as a nation, you will find God. The one verse in Habakkuk that is known, if any verses in Habakkuk were known, is the righteous live by their faith. It actually goes back to, well, let's not go there. The righteous live by their faith. And Habakkuk was moved. He was shook to the core of his being. And what he finds is the incredible grace gift of faith that causes him to rejoice and rise to new places of faith and strength. He affirmed then that even in the face of starvation and loss, he would still rejoice the Lord, that God is good and God is worthy of praise always and forever. His feelings were no longer controlled by the events outside of him, the events of the world, but by his faith in God. And the scripture, towards the very end of the book, and yet, so he describes all this stuff, and yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will exult in the God of my salvation. For God the Lord is my strength. For God the Lord is my strength. Even in the midst of what life is happening or what our planet is doing or what's happening across the globe. I saw a headliner last night that said there are 41 wars going on right now. 41 wars on this planet. And we teach peace. It's like it kind of messes with your head a little bit. But 41 wars are going on like 24/7, and we basically pay no attention until something else happens. And so that plane was shot down. Did you hear that somebody took a picture of the plane and posted it on Facebook and said, just in case this plane goes missing, this is what it looks like? That's trippy. But even in the face of devastation, and even in the face of the world coming together for a moment, stopping for a moment, it's sad that it has to be such devastation to stop. It's sad that it has to be such a public event for our world to stop. Or is it? right? Because the good news is that we can stop and we can reframe and we can readjust. And many of us are going to go into anger and fear and worry and what's wrong and it's never going to end and all of that. But that's exactly where Habakkuk was. So we're being called to take a leap in faith. We're being called to give our faith a faith lift. I stole that term, but I like it. A faith lift. A couple of you got it right away. A faith lift. We're being called to step out in faith. So what is faith? Faith is one of our 12 powers. Faith is the perceiving power of mind linked with the power to shape substance. Or in the book of Hebrews, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and not yet seen. But faith is that power that says no matter what, I'm putting God first. No matter what, I'm looking for God. And I'm looking for good even in the midst of whatever life gives us. I had the opportunity to go to Austin this week. It was an opportunity. It was a challenge. It was a gift. It was one of those mixed bags because a dear friend of mine, was killed last week in a motorcycle accident. And so I got to do his service on Friday. And John was my friend. He was in my congregation when I was in Austin, and then I have been working with him since in small groups in the work that I do, the shift work. Some of you are familiar with that, the shift work that I do. And John was a man, you would say he had a few rough edges when I first met him. And yet his heart, he was the most caring, kind, compassionate man I ever met. He was a big man, kind of like Sam. You know, when you get hugged by Sam, you just kind of disappear into that hug. And you just disappear into John's hugs. And yet when he came into unity, and he came into a really deep, strong, personal connection with God, and he worked his spiritual practice. He worked it hard. And he opened up. And he blossomed. He was the most beautiful soul I've ever seen. About a month ago, several months ago, he called and he said, would you please come to Austin and do another open heart meditation? And I said, well, of course, let me just, whenever, sometime, right? So I was able, about a month ago, to go down there and do that. And John came, and a lot of the people that were doing that work with me in Austin 4 or 5 years ago, however long ago, came. And so it was beautiful. And the people who came said, wow, what happened to John? He's like, there's not a rough edge on him. There's not a snag anywhere. He was so pure spirit. But on that day, he called me. It was probably in early April, and asked me to come to Austin to do an open heart meditation. He said, it's because I really feel like I'm ready for that now. I really want to go to that place. But in that same phone conversation, he asked me to do his memorial service. And I said, John, I'd be thrilled to, but like 30 years, okay? He said, yeah, no problem. And so all those memories are up, right? And it was a 17-year-old boy in a truck hit him on the motorcycle, and, one of those just tragic things. So you're concerned about the boy, and he's in a great place. I mean, he checked out the planet doing exactly what he loved most of all. He loved riding his motorcycle. 69 years old, it was the love of his life. He's getting ready to go on a 2-week motorcycle trip, and so it's like it's both end. Anytime we lose somebody, it's both end, right? So he leaves his wife, Mary. And I've known Mary for 7 or 8 years as well. Mary's paralyzed. Mary relies 24/7 on John's care. So you go, whew, wow. He lives behind his daughter, Allison, who's in her early 20s probably, relatively young. She's married, got a great husband, and the 1-year-old baby that was the love of his life. And you go, oh, so I'm getting ready for this service, right? And I'm going to this service, and I'm looking at Mary. Will you be Mary, Marcus? Looking at Mary. And I'm going, wow, and how am I going to minister to Mary, who's lost her husband of 27 years, the love of her life, her 24/7 care, her home, because she had to be moved into a nursing home, and her paid caregiver who lost her job. 10.5 years. And I'm looking at her caregiver, Arma, and I'm going, wow, you lost Mary, your best friend, John, to death, and your job. And I'm ministering to these people, and I'm ministering to Allison, who says, my dad wanted a party, let's party. All the music was rock and roll music. Billy, you would have struggled with it. It was great rock and roll music in the service. It was wonderful. So I'm ministering to Allison, who's like, I don't want to grieve. I'm fine. It's going to be fine. Let's have a party. And Mary, and then I'm ministering to his family over here, who is all fundamental. And then you got a group of unity people over here. So I've got my people, and I've got those people, and I've got those people. And then this was great. There were like 15 people back here, all in the motorcycle club garb. And I'm going, okay. And I'm personally impacted by this death, right? It was a moment. It was a moment. And it turned out to be beautiful. And somebody from each one of those different groups came up during the eulogy and spoke. And it was absolutely beautiful. But it was rejoicing in the Lord, rejoicing in spirit, calling on spirit to be able to create a container that holds all of that. And of course, in unity, we know that the soul is ever evolving. We know that there is no death. There is no death. The body is laid to rest, but the soul. And so you can feel John and just celebrating. It's like, man, what a way to go. Hard on the family, there's no doubt. I'm just going to make a request, okay? Please, nobody check out this week, okay? I'm just my personal request. All right, yes? Yeah, okay, good, thank you. I appreciate that. So when we come into that place where we deepen our faith, when we go to that deeper place, we're called at this day and age to not take baby steps. We're called to take a leap. We're called to take a quantum leap. Baby steps maybe used to work, but they no longer work. It's a leap of faith. And so leap of faith leads me to Indiana Jones. Somebody said after the second service, she goes, I never know how you're going to tie these things together. Indiana Jones, remember the movie? Right? I think it was the third movie. He had given 3 challenges. He was following the book of clues and riddles and mysteries to get to whatever it was so that he could save his father's life. So they're in the cave, and his dad's dying, and he's running through the tunnels, basically, and he comes, and he's moving pretty quick, and he comes out, and whoa, he's at the edge of this chasm, like, toes are off, right? And the chasm is not a little chasm. It's like Grand Canyon chasm. And yet he knows he has to get across, and he says, well, it's too far to jump. And so he has this whole process in the movie, and he's, looking at the map in his book, and he's like hearing his dad. His dad's in the background going, come on, Indy, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Keep the faith, Indy, keep the faith. And you can feel him processing that. Wow. And ultimately, he puts that little book in his pocket, and he takes that step, right? I'm not going to take that step because my faith is not big enough to know that there'll be a step right underneath me on this stage. But he takes that step, and what appears? A bridge. And you can feel it. It's slow motion. And so he's going down, and then he lands. Probably 6 inches, right? And he lands, and it's solid. Well, it's not solid like ground, but like this big bridge above this chasm, and he gets all the way across. But that bridge was not going to appear until he took that leap, that step, that leap of faith, and then he got to where he needed to be. Think about the times when you've taken a leap of faith in the past, and we've all done it. We've all done it. Maybe it was taking a job and moving across country. Maybe it was leaving a job. Maybe it was getting into a relationship or out of a relationship. Maybe it was a health situation where you knew something had to change. Maybe it was telling the truth to somebody, confronting something that was no longer okay with you. It was all kinds of ways that we take that step into faith. But we're being called to take that leap. When I think about a leap of faith, I think about a time about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was in a group of women who were, some of them going trapezing, like in the circus. And they were all talking about it for a couple of weeks. It just didn't even cross my radar. I'm like, no, I'm not doing, no. Yeah, no. Say it with me. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. And so then one night we were all together and somebody said, we need 3 more people in order to get the group rate. And I said, I'll go. And I said, who in the world did that? But what I know for me is that in my life, when I'm called at whatever level to do something, I just listen and I follow through. So I'm running out of time, but long story, a little bit shorter, is that I went and they were teaching us, how to do it on the ground. And all the while I'm saying, seriously? Yeah, no. And I keep going. I keep taking the steps. I could have called them and said, I'm not doing it. But I didn't. So we're at the crossings in Austin, Texas, and then we're ready for our first flight. And we have to crawl up this ladder, this rope ladder. You know how sturdy those are. Up and up. I'm feeling like Jack and the Beanstalk. And up and up. I swear by the time I'm up there, it's like a mile high. I get up there and I stand on this little platform that's like this big. Now, I don't really like heights, by the way. And I have no interest in doing this, by the way. And I have more than a little fear. I am not really happy. I have some words coming out of my mouth that I can't say on microphone. Right? And they're like, okay, all you do, you strap on, you grab the thing, and all you do, we say, ready, set, hop. I'm like, hop? Yeah, you have to hop off this platform. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. By the way, it's at the edge of the crossings, which is on the edge of a cliff, right, that goes way down, a huge valley down there that overlooks the entire state of Texas, felt like, certainly the city of Austin. I mean, now I'm like 3 miles in the sky, and they're wanting me to hop off this little tiny platform. I'm like, yeah, no. And they're like, no, you just have to do it. It's easy, you're fine, you're safe, you got all your harnesses, you're fine. I'm like, okay, ready, set, no, I can't do it. I said, no, really, you have to do it. I'm like, okay. They said, every time you wait, it gets harder. I'm like, okay, ready, set, no, I can't do it. Ready, set, no, I can't. They said, you really have to go. You can't crawl down that ladder. It's the only way down off of here. I'm like, oh, ready, set, hop. And I hopped. And it was the most exhilarating experience I've ever had. And you hook your legs, and then you go upside down, and then you rehook again, and then they're yelling commands to you. So by that time, you have no mind left. You just automatically respond to what they tell you to do. Which was the plan, and it worked. And then they're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, let go, and you backflip off the trapeze and land in the net. Oh! And I get down, I'm like, I did it. And they said, okay, get in line, go again. Again? You gotta be kidding me. And I went 3 or 4 times, and then by the end of the time, it didn't get that much easier, although I kept crawling up there. Why, I have no idea. But then at the end, some of the people who were much better than I got to actually transfer to another person by the end of this experience. You know what you see, and that whole thing of talking about trapeze and letting go and grabbing on. So I did not do that, by the way, and I get home, and a couple of weeks later, my girlfriend calls me up. She goes, I feel really bad that I didn't do that pass. Let's go back. I said, okay. What? We went again, and we did the same thing. It was still, I have no need to do it again, let me tell you that. But we went, and we did it again, and then that pass where they say, let go, and you let go, and then you're grabbed by this other person, and you actually did it. And it was the most amazing leap of faith in my entire life. And what I know for me, when I'm called to step out in a new way, it breaks through barriers of all kinds. I didn't know I had fear. I mean, I knew I was smart and was not going to do that. But I didn't know, I didn't know the fear that I still carried in my body, in my consciousness. And so to take that leap of faith then transcends all that stuff. Where we are on this planet, it's time to take the quantum leaps. You cannot baby step. You have to leap. I'm not saying you have to go do trapeze, and I probably will not do it again, by the way, but I wouldn't give away that experience for anything. It transformed me at depth. We're being called to step out in faith. Don't be afraid to take that leap of faith, because the only thing, you have nothing to lose. Let me say it that way. You have nothing to lose but fear. And every time we let go of fear and we develop our faith, we step into a greater awareness of the presence and power of that is God. Every time we do that, we step into a greater realization of the truth of who we are here on the planet to be. And who we are here on the planet to be is magnificent spiritual beings. We're being called to step out of our boxes, to take that leap of faith, to spread our wings, and to soar. You are being called to take that leap of faith, to spread your wings, and to soar. I hope that you will do it with us. God bless you.